Nature shows us all truths. When an imbalance occurs in an ecosystem, the system eventually goes back to homeostasis. For example, if a predator species like a hawk begins to overcome a prey species like a rabbit, the hawks will eventually diminish their prey so much that their own hawk population will also decrease and be affected. As the hawks decrease, the rabbit species will eventually increase because there will be less predators eating them. And then as the rabbits increase, the hawks will eventually increase as well because they will have more food. The ecosystem is constantly swinging back and forth until it can hit that sweet spot of homeostasis or balance. For the last millennia, the dark has been out of balance. Just as the dark gives birth to the light, we will come back into homeostasis of light and dark. This is the natural law. This is why the starseeds will prevail. How do you know that there has been an imbalance of dark to light? Because there have been blocks to innovation. As a society, we can absolutely support free, renewable power and free Wi-Fi for all. As a society, we can absolutely have already transitioned off of things like oil and into renewable fuels for our everyday needs. As a society, we can absolutely have already transitioned to usable plastic alternatives that don't create things like hypoxia, a lack of oxygen in the ocean. All this and more innovations that would drastically improve our well-being and our planet's well-being already exist. There's enough money, intelligence, and resources to make it happen, and yet it hasn't. Innovation and adaptability are the sign of life. Just as we mentioned, nature teaches all truths. A plant is constantly growing and adapting to its environment. There are only two reasons a plant or anything in nature is no longer growing. One is when it is healing. When it needs to heal from a wound or a sickness, the energy used to grow will be diverted to heal, only long enough until it can begin growing and adapting again. The second is when it is dying. It is true on the individual level all the way up to the systematic. If we stop rising to meet the challenges of life, life will stop challenging us. And we may be alive, but we will not be living. This is the strategy the dark has been banking on for a long time. Your constant comfort is also your demise. To stop rising to meet the challenges that life sends you through growth of learning, adapting, and innovating, or through healing so you can begin to grow, adapt, and innovate, is to choose to deny life. The dark hopes that people have died enough inside that they will also not rise up to meet the challenge of life, of nature being put before them. This is why the call now is for the people to wake up. And for those of us illuminating, educating, and organizing, we don't have to try to force or try to make it happen. It is happening as a consequence of the rise of darkness. As the dark gets stronger, it literally gives birth to more light. This invitation will spring people back to life. This is why the dark finds themselves in a checkmate of sorts. There's a superstition that when generations are born with more boys than girls, it is because there is an inevitable war coming up. In the same vein, there is an abundance of starseeds because there is an abundance of darkness. Because the dark has declared war upon humanity. There's a natural balance, the dark and the light, where truths can be found in both. This is part of the natural and universal laws. Now the starseeds are overpopulating in response to the imbalance of darkness. And the dark reads the writing on the wall. So now the attempt is to break everything on the way down. As in, if I can't have it, no one can, while hoping to preserve as much as they can. Now the strategy is to prolong the inevitable. When that fails, it will be to go underground with as many resources as possible. I said a few months ago that at some point in time we will look back at the history we know as the Dark Ages. And it is, and it was. It has been a millennia of darkness, and its time has finally come. As the guidance said, the starseeds will be able to create their own light, regardless of how dark it gets. I know how to make my own light. I know I have, and I know I am, the power in my life. I am shining so those that are asleep do not fall prey to this current imbalance. Those of us here to spread light need to stand up and embody so that those that are looking for light can find us. Even though the starseeds will always be able to generate their own light, regardless of the darkness, it is not about us as much. It is about those that are still asleep, those that will fall prey to the imbalance. You would not be able to live long, starseeds, out of alignment with yourself, as this is part of our sensitivity and DNA. Creating a positive world impacts us, though, and we only benefit from creating more light for everyone. And so it is important to understand that you are the power. If you weren't the power they are looking to harness, they wouldn't spend billions, if not trillions of dollars trying to hook your attention or your energy at Super Bowl commercials, on social media, in advertising, in the news, in politics, in everything. If you didn't have so much power, why would they be making so much effort? Think about it, really. Right now, they are attempting to have the masses co-create their own demise through media implanting. If you start focusing in on the media stories, many of them are projectory, as in they are not reporting on the present, but using their influence to implant an idea of the future. By implanting this idea, their preferred future, the masses are internalizing and then projecting their own associated emotions of fear and shame onto this projection of their ideal possible future reality. They're attempting to have you manifest this into reality for yourself. They're trusting that you are self-domesticated enough, that you will close your own jail door behind you. There are too many people now to control by physical force. They need acquiescence since they do not have enough enforcement to do it themselves. It comes down to the individual, but they cannot control the individual. They can control the masses. And this is where the difficulty of their problem arises. This is part of the reason for the bread and circuses tactic. The bread and circuses tactic will be explained more in depth, but it was used by the Roman Empire during their collapse. The citizens were given diversions in the way of cheap food and entertainment to keep political control in favor. If these superficial distractions diverted the masses' energy, they would never revolt while their quality of life diminished. Seems familiar. The difficult thing is the internet is now the main means of spreading said propaganda, and it is the same route the resistance and the awake are using to spread awareness. And so the darkness cannot turn it off, because without the constant hypnotic distractions, the masses will be left to their own thinking and awareness. That will lead to questions and eventually waking up. The masses would identify that the virtual reality of pain and suffering they are indoctrinated into is not present without the constant onslaught of that vibration of information, with the individual's acceptance and consent to that as their own reality. But if the dark leaves the internet untouched now, people will be able to find the truth and will also once again be able to identify their virtual reality created by the darkness of war, pain, and suffering. We say virtual because how much of that is in each individual's actual experience outside of their screens. in their walking life, how much of that virtual reality actually translates to their real one. From moment to moment of all the moments that make up one's life, how many of those moments exist in that virtual reality? So censoring is the only way to continue their strategy, but they will also reveal themselves just as much. As they choose who and what to censor, they will also be identifying and illuminating their weak spots, or what threatens their narrative. As we said, they're in a checkmate. Any way they move will lead to their own fall. So now it is just how long the people are willing to suffer and to what extent. The people are free to create their own real reality right now. Heaven is available on earth. One must just be willing to take the steps to get there. Every self-help, manifestation, motivational, secret, book, movie, speech, whatever, can be summed up by the following 2 sentences. You can have everything you want. You just have to do the work. And so now the work for those that are anchoring in light, those that are bringing the world back into balance and back into the natural evolutionary timeline that was available to humanity until the dark hijacked and diverted your energy as a collective, is to create spaces of light. Find the others. Connect through the light. Now it is just a matter of time. The pieces that must fall and the truths that must be faced still must come out. You are not out of the woods, as the expression says, but it is more of how long do you want to stay in the woods. As you as an individual walk yourself out of the woods, you guide the rest to follow you there. And there you will find the others.